Back then, we didn't have much. No computers, no satellites, no fancy screens glowing in the dark. Just wires, dials, and a faint hum that seemed to come from the bones of the earth itself. They called us the boffins, the strange lot working in little shacks by the sea. But in truth, we were Britain's unseen eyes. And when the Germans came, when the sky itself burned, it was those quiet machines that whispered life or death into our headsets. I remember that night as if it were yesterday. August 1940. The Blitz hadn't quite earned its name yet, but the raids were coming, heavier and closer every day. We knew they'd come again that evening. They always came at dusk, when the channel turned silver and the coastal towns dimmed their lights. We were told to stay ready. Always ready. Our station sat on the cliffs near Dover, a skeletal tower of steel and cables overlooking the endless gray water. The chain home, they called it, Britain's first line of defense. A strange name for a miracle that could see beyond the horizon. The Luftwaffe never knew. They thought their raids were invisible, untouchable. They thought darkness was their ally. But we had something they didn't, something they couldn't even imagine. Radar. Oh, it was crude by today's standards, but to us it was magic. We could see a plane long before it broke through the clouds. Tiny pulses of radio waves bouncing off metal wings, returning to our scopes like ghosts in the storm. And every blip meant one thing: they were coming. At first, even we didn't believe it worked. There were nights when static filled the room, when our coffee went cold and our eyes blurred with exhaustion. But then, snaps fingers softly, you'd see it, a faint mark on the cathode ray tube. A whisper of motion from somewhere over the channel. That was the enemy, and that whisper meant hundreds of lives might soon depend on what we did next. I leaned forward in my chair, the headphones pressing tight against my ears. The hum deepened. The signal grew stronger. "They're forming up, 40, maybe 50, I murmured into the transmitter. Seconds later, the phone lines came alive. Command centers, RAF stations, fighter controllers, everyone listening. Scramble the Spitfires. The words still send a chill through me. We'd send young boys into the sky, barely old enough to shave. Brave, reckless souls flying toward the thunder. We could only listen. Minutes felt like hours as we tracked the incoming raid. The dots moved closer, their speed increasing. The Luftwaffe, Heinkels, Dorniers, and Junkers all sweeping toward London. They didn't know we could see them coming. They believed Britain was blind. But we weren't. We were wide awake. I remember glancing at my partner, Elsie, a girl barely 20, sharp as a tack. She'd jot down range and bearing faster than anyone else. We'd trained ourselves to read echoes like heartbeats. She caught my eye and smiled nervously. "Think they'll make it tonight?" she asked. I shook my head. "Not if our boys get there first." And right on cue, the roar of Merlin engines filled the coastal air. The Spitfires rose into the sunset, a dozen silver birds climbing into orange flame. From our post, we couldn't see the battle, but we could hear it through the static. The controller's calm voice crackling over the wireless. "Enemy formation sighted. Engage at Angels 15. Then silence. Just silence. It's strange how quiet a war can sound when you're on the ground. Only the distant rumble of anti-aircraft guns, faint like thunder over the sea. Then, one by one, the echoes on our screen began to vanish. Gone. That's when we knew radar had done its job. The Germans never expected it. They couldn't understand how we always seemed ready, how we intercepted them night after night. To them, it was witchcraft, but to us, it was salvation. When the night ended, Elsie leaned back in her chair, rubbed her eyes, and muttered, "They'll never figure it out, will they?" I just smiled. Not tonight, not yet. But we knew they'd be back, and next time the sky would burn brighter than ever before. We didn't win the war that night, but we stopped the darkness from crossing the sea. And for a few precious hours, Britain slept beneath the fragile peace, guarded not by guns or walls, but by invisible waves of light. Funny, isn't it? The war wasn't won by the loudest explosions, but by the quietest echoes. Across the Channel, the Germans called it Operation Adler Angriff, the Eagle Attack. To them, Britain was a dying ember, a stubborn island standing alone. One last push, they said, one final storm of fire, and England would kneel. But no one told them the island could see. Captain Karl Meissner, Luftwaffe Bomber Command, remembered those nights all too well. He'd flown over Warsaw, over Rotterdam, but nothing unnerved him like flying toward London. It was August 15th, 1940. Sunset painted the clouds crimson, and the channel below shimmered like molten steel. Meissner led a formation of Heinkel H-111s, engines droning steady at 12,000 feet. Below him, the sea stretched quiet and endless, not a British ship in sight. Everything should have been perfect. They'd planned it to the minute. They'd taken new routes to confuse British interceptors. Radio silence was strict. Their intelligence said the RAF was exhausted, that their fighters were finished. But the British were waiting. Before they even reached the coast, Meissner saw it, the first flicker of flak, distant and deliberate. Shells burst high and ahead, not random, not searching. It was as if someone knew exactly where they were. He frowned, muttering to his co-pilot, "How could they know we're here?" Moments later, his escorting Messerschmitts dove to intercept something unseen. Tiny dots on the horizon, Spitfires, already climbing, already in position. The Germans were stunned. Every time they changed direction, the RAF found them. Every time they tried to slip through the clouds, the British were there first. It wasn't luck. It wasn't magic. It was radar. Those strange towers the Luftwaffe had dismissed as radio posts. But the towers were rebuilt within days, still humming, still watching. And that was the problem. The Germans couldn't understand how the British always saw them coming. Meissner's crew started calling it the Eye of London. Some joked about ghosts guiding the RAF. Others swore there were spies in every squadron. But deep down, a fear began to grow. Something was out there, invisible, and it was watching them. On September 7th, the full fury of the Blitz began. Hundreds of bombers crossed the Channel, blackening the sky. London below, a maze of flickering lights, sirens and fire. But still, somehow the British fighters found them. Each wave met by Spitfires and Hurricanes, climbing like angels through smoke.
Meissner would later write in his diary, "They knew, every time, even before we were close. It was as if they could read our thoughts." By October, whispers reached Berlin. German scientists speculated about Funkmessverfahren, radio detection. A primitive idea, they said. Unreliable. But after so many failed raids, the whispers turned to dread. It was radar, and it had turned Britain into a fortress of invisible walls. For the first time in the war, the Luftwaffe faced something it couldn't outfly or outfight. Every strategy crumbled before it. Their arrogance faded, replaced by disbelief. They realized the truth too late. The Blitz, once meant to break Britain's spirit, only steeled it. Radar had given the island nation something more powerful than defense. It had given them hope. Years later, I sometimes visit that old radar site. Just rusted beams now, whispering to the wind. But when the fog rolls in from the Channel, I swear, you can still feel the hum. We weren't heroes. We were watchers, tired, frightened, ordinary souls doing what had to be done. But that hum, it changed everything. Funny, isn't it? The world remembers the Spitfires, the searchlights, the dogfights in the clouds, but the real battle was fought in silence, with invisible waves and faith in something no one could see. So the next time you hear thunder on a summer night,
Remember the men and women who listened for echoes in the dark. They saved a nation, not with guns, but with light. Thank you for joining this story. If you felt something tonight, if these echoes touched your heart, please subscribe, leave a like, and share this tale with someone who still believes in courage unseen. Because stories like this should never fade. Good night from the cliffs of Dover.